Hello, I'm Xiaoting Ho Jones from Dona Economics Action Lab. In this video, we'll explore how government can design policies that can foster economies that are regenerative, meeting the needs of our people within the means of the living planet. Let's start with how mainstream economics view nature. At the macro scale, nature is classified as one of the many types of capital, an asset within the economy. At the micro scale, ecological degradation and pollution caused by economic activities are described as environmental externalities, the orange wedge between the private cost and the social cost of the scale of activity. Here's irony. If aliens wanted to destroy life on Earth, they wouldn't need lasers. They would just need to convince us humans that these concepts effectively describe our relationship with the living planet, and we humans would take care of the rest. This mindset created last century's industrial systems, a degenerative cradle-to-grave model of take, make, use, lose. Extract Earth's resources, manufacture products, sell to consumers, create conditions so they buy more. This model delivered profits and enriched nations, but its design has broken natural cycles, depleted Earth's resources, and overloaded its sinks with waste. Policymakers have long relied on market tools to curb the ecological harm caused by such degenerative and profit-driven systems. For example, tools like fines and taxes can make polluters pay, forcing them to consider the ecological costs of their actions. Tools like payments for ecosystem services create market values for the many benefits humans derive from ecosystems, moving beyond treating nature just as a profit-generating asset. These approaches are important, but often treat symptoms rather than transforming the underlying degenerative design. If industrial activity continued to privatize profits while socializing ecological and social costs, these tools alone will never achieve true sustainability. Worse, financial incentives may even crowd out intrinsic care for nature or exacerbate local inequalities when communities lose access and a connection to their land as it becomes commodified in markets. Others pin hope on green technology. For example, many governments have supported the spread of solar panels and electric vehicles to reduce carbon emissions and combat climate change. But if these technologies are designed with the same degenerative mindset, they risk creating new ecological challenges, from biodiversity loss to land grabs and pollution. Market tools and green technologies are important but insufficient. Truly addressing ecological crisis requires something more fundamental, a complete redesign of our systems. The only way to get back within planetary boundaries is to create economies that are regenerative by design, systems that restore and renew the cycles of life on which all lives depend. Governments have a critical role to play in such a system shift. Beyond traditional market tools and technologies, policymakers can adopt a regenerative mindset, and we will explore some examples of how. Governments can design policies to align economic activities with natural cycles and respect the limits of our living planet. For example, they can set standards, provide guidance, and invest in economic activities like building resilient green cities, supporting regenerative agriculture initiatives that can restore ecosystems while meeting human needs. Governments can offer incentives for repair and reuse. They can require manufacturers to take responsibility for their product's entire life cycle to incentivize circular design. Governments can restructure taxation systems to shift burden from human labor to non-renewable resources and pollution, encouraging businesses to focus on resource productivity rather than just labor productivity. They can redesign financial systems so they flow to regenerative instead of degenerative activities. For example, through requiring banks to disclose their investments' ecological impacts and implementing preferential interest rates for regenerative projects. Governments can support and work closely with those who actively steward nature, from local and indigenous communities to regenerative businesses that prioritize ecological health. For example, governments can provide incentives for regenerative enterprises through tax benefits and preferential public procurement. Governments can establish strategic partnership with indigenous peoples and local communities to collectively manage protected areas, national parks, or green urban infrastructure. Crucially, this means ensuring secure customary and collective land rights for indigenous and local communities who have sustained the ecosystem for generations. Governments can also reform financial systems so that those nature stewards have better access to them. For example, through dedicated funding mechanisms and restructuring banking regulations to support purpose-driven financial institutions. To ensure that economic activities respect ecological limits, governments can legally recognize the rights of ecosystems, like rivers, forests, and wetlands, to exist, thrive, and regenerate. They can create frameworks for citizen-led initiatives to advocate for nature's rights and hold institutions accountable for ecological harm. They can provide guidance and incentives to help businesses integrate nature into their governance systems, creating standards for ecological stewardship. The sixth way of thinking in donor economics invites governments to redesign policies that work with nature's regenerative capacity rather than against it. Regenerative by design is about designing systems that give back more than they take. This transformation is already beginning worldwide. You can explore real-world examples and dive deeper into how government can apply these insights through our web-based policymaker guide.